Hey, hello friends, back out here playing cars in the Vinyl Village garage, working on the Great Pumpkin 1968 Firebird complete overhaul here in this little two-car garage, proving to you it can be done. We're working on the series of the vintage air installation. You guys have already seen the heater box upgrades and updates that we did. Got the condenser installed, compressor installed, lines routed, all plumbed and ready to go. But one of the next things we're talking about is the factory heater controls here. These awful, horrible, stiff cables work great for the factory setup, but they become obsolete. So we got to ditch all that. It's not an overly complicated upgrade. I'm going to drag you along for the journey just the same to basically give you some insight on how to do this. But I've got some broken levers inside. I got some ideas to get it fixed up. So I'm hoping it's going to work and it should be pretty cut and dry. And I will say the 67 and 68 update to this is a whole lot easier than 1969. A lot less modifications, brackets, screws, and bits and pieces. So should be pretty straightforward, I hope. But let's dig into this thing. We'll take this thing in the house. We'll get this thing started. Okay, here's everything laid out. Here controls you guys familiar with. Here's the directions to the vintage air. Here's the kit. Here's the sensors, or I guess you say the potentiometers we're going to install onto this. Side cuts, screwdriver, JB weld, and a hanger. I'll show you what that's all about here in a few minutes. These pliers are super beneficial. I'll show you exactly again why you might want a pair of these. That's going to be as we get the face off there. Some chrome polish because we're going to shine this thing up, make it look real nice. Of course, you guys know Orange Mountain Dew, and then of course our ever so famous Chick-fil-A ranch, because who doesn't like ranch with their chicken? Well, anyway, that was just kind of ridiculous. It's technically on the table. But anyway, let's get into this thing here. I'll show you what we got. There's the broken component here. There's this lever. That's not supposed to be a two-piece set there. That's supposed to be one piece. Somewhere in the life of this car, that lever got broke. And that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to use the coat hangers, scuff this up real good, both sides, run a coat hanger for reinforcement, and then wrap it with JB weld and let it cure. And since now we're not going to be operating this hard to push and pull cable, then just a potentiometer, that should be plenty of strength to hold that together. But first things first, we got to pop these three things off and get this face all torn apart and get to the base of this thing. All right, and what we're going to get into here first is popping off these little chrome knobs. They're not that expensive to replace, they're actually relatively cheap, but if I can salvage them, it's going to save a few bucks. What we're going to end up doing is, that's what these pliers are for. We're going to hook them underneath it and kind of use this as a lever. I'm going to pop them off. So, but to protect that front edge, I'm going to take one of my shop towels here, about like so, and you guys can see, hopefully, get in there behind it. Well, maybe. Oh, okay, that one's off. Then we'll do the same thing here to the next one. Again, just not a whole lot of pressure. These things are just plastic, so. All right, and then last but not least, that one there. All right, there we go. That's the first step. Then we can pull the face off that control panel. Now these tabs, I was working on trying to get them off that, breaking them. This direction shows screws for these parts. So this doesn't have screws. They've just bent these tabs over. Well, they're not bending back so well. This is kind of like a cheap pot metal. So what I'm going to probably end up doing is I'll have to pry them back. They'll probably break off. When all said and done, probably have to put screws back through these holes here. You can see here's what I'm talking about, these little tabs. That thing's bent clean over the front edge of that, so they're using to hold it together, which was fine, except when you go to try to bend it back. Yeah, it just pops right off. So we'll just put screws through the holes. There we go. And this can come off. That'll be a separate piece we'll have to mess with then. Now let's get into figuring how we're going to fix this broken lever. Okay, in order to get in here to fix this lever, I'm going to go ahead and pull these three cables out of the way. It's just a bolt, and you pull this little washer thing off, so I don't think that's overly complicated. So we'll go ahead and knock that out, and then I'll be right back. Okay, got all that junk out of the way. Cables, blower, motor, switch, went and took it off. There's my scrap pieces. And here's what we're talking about. This is the other side of it here. I'm going to get this swung out of the way. We're going to take the sandpaper. It's like 80 grit. And we're going to scar this up real good, clean it, wipe it down, and do the same thing to this side of the bracket. Flip the thing over, and then we're going to do the same thing, scuff all this up really good. And what I'll probably do, this is where the coat hanger is going to come into play. I'm gonna cut a little like 1.5, 1 inch strip. And we're gonna lay it parallel to the crack, or like this along this line here, and kind of bend it to follow that, and then cover it with the JB Weld and wrap or encase the whole thing. And that should be plenty strong enough to move a little potentiometer. All right, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get the sandpaper in here and just scuff the heck out of this thing with the idea of something for that JB Weld to bite into. Now I'm gonna actually get the JB Weld to go all the way around the whole thing as one piece as it cures, so put that in the equation too. It's probably gonna be more than sufficient. But who wants to buy new heater controls? All right, that's that side. Now we'll go to the other side. Do the same thing. That should do it. Now, give a little clean up here. All right. Now here's where the coat hanger comes into play. We're just going to cut a couple little pieces. Same thing, we'll give these a little scuff. Don't tell Whitney I'm doing this on the dining room table either. Alright. Now I'll give a couple little bends. Or I might just put them both on this side. This is probably overkill. Oh, that'll work nice. Do the same thing here. Oh, kind of a Z-type bend. All right, now this is kind of what that looks like there. Nice little zigzag in it. That should lay in there pretty good. Now I guess what we'll do is mix up a little bit of this. I've all mixed up a little bit of JB Weld. It's basically just like an epoxy more or less. Squeeze out equal amounts, mix thoroughly, then put into place. Now this stuff isn't the quick setting stuff, so it's going to take a little longer to cure, so we'll have to find something else to do in the meantime. That should be good, I hope. Yuck. Okay, well, there we go. Now we'll get this into place here. Nice, I probably mixed up more than enough. All right, now put this in there. I'll liberally coat that. Now I'll flip it over and do the same to the other side. Well, now we get that kind of put it into place and just let it sit and see what happens. All right, got this propped up, waiting for that stuff to cure. It's going to take some time for that JB weld to cure, so that maybe hit pause on that, come back later kind of thing. But while we're waiting, let's talk about this faceplate. Now, this is your heater control plate. This is the factory orientation and everything. Now, Vintage Air gives you a couple options. Leave this 100% as is, put it back together, or don't even take it apart like I did. Don't even mess with it. The downside of that, though, is if you look here carefully, off, high, hot, cold. Cold, hot. That's backwards. Defrost, floor, dash. Off, defrost. So you know what I mean? Everything is not orientated right. So anyone who doesn't know what's going on would never get the air conditioning or the heat to work properly. So Vintage Air gives you this cool sticker. You can lay it right on top. Well, that's fine, except for it just doesn't look quite right. It loses its the factory look. So I've got another idea popping in my head. It's going to require us to remove all this white lettering from the faceplate. This stuff comes off pretty easily for the most part. It's kind of like the instrument gauges and stuff. They don't take much abuse. It's almost like a water soluble or very easy to remove paint. So basically a nice plastic or paint rubbing compound, you can probably polish these letters and stuff right off. So we're going to give that a shot. Then what the idea is, if I get all these polished off and make this nice and clear, we're going to cut this thing up just a little bit and put it behind that so it has the same appearance as it did from the factory. So we're going to actually peel this apart, cut it, stick it to this, and then sandwich this on top. Let's get started. Check out the word off here. Of course, you can see it's pretty clean and nice and pretty, but we're going ahead and remove that by, here's some rubbing compound. Take that and just kind of basically rub the word off, clean off this thing. It didn't take much force or much pressure, but you can see now that is completely gone. So basically you could do the same thing here to all the rest of the words here, and we'll get all of them polished off so you have a nice clear lens. So when I place it on top of the sticker, then it'll read what you want it to read. But there you go. Check it out. Clean as can be, no more word off. So go ahead and just do it to all of them here. Take me just a few minutes, get all those completely polished out of there, but then we'll see the next part here. And here we go, all crystal clear and ready to go. Put that back in place. It'll look really nice and give you the factory look. The next thing is going to be this piece here. We're going to take this sticker and literally cut it into strips and lay it on this face here. We'll have to cut it so it won't quite go over that 90-degree bend. So we're going to have to actually cut this thing in strips. I'm going to try to cut it here parallel right with this line here and come straight across both sides and do it in strips and see how that goes. So hopefully this works. All right, found me something to cut on because I don't want to tear my table up here. So I finally found a good use for the directions here. We're going to use this as a nice clean straight edge. And we're going to use that to cut the new blade. See how we did. Now you get the idea. Hopefully now, and this will fit just like that. Now there's adhesive on the back of this here. We'll peel the sticky off and put it into place, but now I'll have to do the same thing. I'm not gonna cut this out. We're gonna cut right across the top edge of the next one and lay it into place. Down. All right, moment of truth. What's it look like? Now, that'll be the order of operation. I need just a little more trimming. Won't quite fit into that groove, so I'll have to trim just maybe a smidge off the top, or maybe a little bit off the sides, or both, but you get the idea here. Now, you can stack these things in place. I'll have all the steps in it. So again, I think I'm gonna have to trim just a little bit off that bottom edge. You can see it just overhangs a little bit. So I'm gonna have to do some trimming, but I think it's gonna work. Okay, after a little bit more careful trimming, I've actually got it now to where it will actually stack really nice. I had to take off just the slimmest amount off the edges of it to get it to fit into the channels, but now you'll get the idea. It all stacks in here very clean. And this guy has an adhesive on the back, so once I'm super happy with everything, I'll just peel the sticky off, lock it into place, and then this here will lay right on top. Like so, and then check this out. It's behind the plastic, and it looked very, very close to factory, and I don't know, it looks a whole lot cleaner, I guess, in my opinion. So there we go. That's the part we're gonna go ahead. I like it. It lays down nice and flat. It pulls up tight now. So I think the thing to do now is go ahead and pull the sticky off the back and make it permanent. All right, now let's go ahead and get this assembled. Here's our new repaired, or I guess a doctored up, reconfigured plate. Looks really nice and clean, all assembled. Now this will stack on top of this part here. Don't forget your little blue diffuser if you want to put that back in there. And then this stacks in place. Maybe, there it is. Now that's all in order. And this goes right on top. And the question becomes, do I put rivets into these holes, put screws into it, or do I just bend over the other tabs that I didn't break off yet? I'm kind of voting for the bend the other tabs I didn't break off yet. So we're gonna give that a shot. I'm gonna twist these all around and get that seated, and I'll put our 3 knobs on there. All right, what I've done here is take the vice grips, pull it tight. I'm gonna take these side cuts here. Now, unfortunately, you only get so many uses out of this, but hopefully this never has to come back apart. But check it out. Bent the thing over, and I think it's gonna work fine. We'll just use these here to squeeze it into place. There we go. That is all one piece again. And then I can reinstall these things. These just push into place. I was able to salvage the original ones, which is cool. Saves me a couple bucks, and they shined up nice too. Okay, well, that's the cosmetics of it. That looks really clean and really nice. It's gonna work good. Next things we're gonna work on is getting the potentiometers, or the new, I guess, functions operational. Okay, the moment you're all waiting for, these are the actuators. Now there's 3 of them. You got one for temperature, one for fan speed, the one for mode, like defrost, floor, vent, whatever it might be. Now these are obviously kind of universal, but we're gonna make them work for their kit. The instructions are very good. They're written in picture, which I read fluently, but 2 of them are gonna be cut the same, one's gonna be longer. We need to trim off basically to the 3rd hole right in the middle, like so. And the directions recommend rounding off the edges, so we'll do that. And there's 2 of them that need to be configured that way. So I'll go ahead and knock both of those out. I'll get that later. And last but not least, the last one we're gonna cut here right at the 3rd position. Trim it back, make it pretty. Now the thing about the directions, you're gonna talk about this thing sliding back and forth. You want it at the innermost portion possible, but not when you slam the lever. It wants to split this housing open. So when the time it's all adjusted, just a little bit of a gap between the head of this thing and the base here. So keep that in mind. Now the next part of the puzzle is they want these little nylon inserts pushed into the little sleeves. This is kind of a wear bushing, and it also takes up the slack. So go ahead and press those into place. Again, the outermost hole should get you where you need to be. What are you? Little devil. All right, and this one here. Okay. All right, we're going to start with the one here right on top. It's probably easier to see and kind of self-explanatory that way. And the other ones are very similar. But there's a sleeve here. This is going to take the place of how it attaches to the heater controls. This is the factory bolt we removed earlier from the cable mechanism. But then here's your stud where the cable used to ride. Pretty self-explanatory. Slide that over. Get a 1/4 inch socket. And snug this thing up. This is where that adjustment thing comes into play. Now this lever moves back and forth, but when it's bottomed out, I don't want it to hit. It should be able to go full travel without bottoming out in the opening in the window here or there. It goes both ways and doesn't hit. So I'm gonna say that's probably where it needs to be. And we'll snug this thing up. And I also provide you these little lock washer things I pried off earlier. There you go. Now that's secure. Now that, all right, the next one we're gonna do is gonna be for the temperature control. This one is slightly longer. Put the outside bushing in, went ahead and installed this. Now it actually will be the second lever, the one in the middle on the control panel. Now the orientation of this, it shows the orientation, this little magic box is gonna face towards the bottom like the other one here. But we'll go ahead and get it started on here. And we'll flip it over. And install said bolt and do the same thing. Get the rough adjustment so it doesn't bottom out on either direction. Now before I lock that down all the way, let's operate the temperature, which like I said, here's one in the middle. Make sure it doesn't bottom out or pull all the way out of the housing. Looks pretty good. We're gonna slide it in just a little bit. There we go. There we go. Well, it says within an 1/8 inch, I think, in the directions, but we get that there. We've got a little bit of a gap. Slide it this way. No problem whatsoever. So we're going to snug the bolt up and install my little retainer here. All right, that's on. And we'll snug it up. The last and not least will be, should be the fan one here. Yep, that's the fan. And it's a similar situation. Line it up, put it on the stud, and should be good to go. All right, got all three of those installed and working. I said check your depth and everything looks good. Travel is no binding, nice and smooth, but I went ahead and the next part of it is going to be wiring it up. Pretty self-explanatory, except for you see 1, 2, 3 switches and 4 plugs. Well, that doesn't make sense, does it? All 4 plugs are the same. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. We have a mode door, or mode one. That's going to be the one with the yellow wire. A temperature door, or change temperature, is going to be red. And then our fan is going to be the green wire. I marked it with a G there. So that kind of narrows it down, helps us out figure which wires needs to go where. That being said, look at the wires. All of them have a red and a white wire, but one has a tracer. That's going to be our red one. See the green, that's going to be our green, and yellow, and so on. And the blue one is not used in this application, so we just kind of avoid that out. So yellow goes on mode. And then we'll do red on temperature. And then green on blower speed. Now what the directions have you do, now you've got these all laid out pretty, is pull the wires down snug to the housing, then wrap a zip tie around it. Helps secure it into place and hold it down. So we'll go ahead, since they're provided, put those in. There you go. I'll do the same here to the other two. All right, all zip tied up, all pretty there. Everything looks great. I have the leftover pieces here kind of going through them, but nonetheless, I took the 2 blower motor switch screws and put them into the cover. But if you actually read the directions, those are, I consider just kind of suggestions. Those aren't required. I like looking at the pictures, but that's what those screws are provided for. You could actually use those screws to screw the face plate back on. Oh well, so I'll have those for spares. This is a program wire. Do not lose this. This is going to be hooked to ground, and when you ground this wire out, that's what sends the ECM this thing plugs into program mode. It sets the minimums and the maximums for these potentiometers that took place to the cable. So basically, it's going to tell the computer, here's full and minimum, and then knows somewhere in between there, it actually kind of is a calibration, exactly what it says. So it knows how to operate the functions. And of course, I'm going to drink this, and we still don't need that. Nonetheless, this is all done. Looks great. Looks very correct. You're saying this for the faceplate, so it doesn't look like it's been modified. So it has a clear plastic look. And I think it's kind of a cool custom touch. So this is ready to be put into the car. Ta-da! There you have it. Heater controls all done, ready to go. All you do is plug it in, push the button, done, right? Well, pretty close. I kind of put it into place because I wanted to see how pretty it was on the autumn bronze dash. By the way, a little custom touch. We didn't do this exactly how Vintage Air said to do it. I like doing my own custom little face. I didn't like the sticker. It's not bad. It does illuminate through the backside. It wouldn't look awful, but I just like this look better. It take a few minutes, razor blades, some scissors, a little trimming, slap it together. Looks really clean. So, or don't have to do that mod. I'm just going to show you how we do it here. Like I said, the t-shirt says it the right way, the wrong way, and then, of course, the VVG way. The directions, those are only suggestions in my world, right? And that gets you in trouble sometimes. But, hey, little custom touches like this kind of set the car apart. I'm going to say this is probably the only car that's done this way, maybe. I don't know. Don't care. This is how we're doing it, having some fun building cars and sharing the journey with you. And speaking of that, what's next? I have no idea. I was debating doing the evac and recharge, pressure test the system, but I ran into a little snag when doing the crankshaft pulley. When I pulled that apart, I see a little oily residue on the front of the oily pan. And I called it an oily pan because, well, it's got oil on it, and it's not supposed to. It's only supposed to be in the pan, not on the pan on the outside. So I'm going to have to do some oil leak repairs. Right now, it'll be a whole lot easier to pull that core support off this car, get the timing cover off, reseal it, and put it back together. May do a video, may not. You guys let me know what you think on that. If you want to see me taking this pretty shiny, nice engine back apart and sealing back up, hey, let me know. Got a little time yet to burn up here, and plenty more yet to go on the Vintage Air setup. I've got everything, all the big heavy lifting done. Now I got to do some duct work, modify the dash cutout here, and a couple other small things. We're getting really, really, really close. So I hope you guys join us. And of course, another thing coming up really close to the 4,000 subscriber mark. Yay, right? Well, whatever. This has kind of been a fun challenge for me, pushing me out of my comfort zone, getting in front of this camera and talking and sharing what I know or what I've done or how not to do it, is what I like to say. But anyway, I've rambled on enough. I'll grab the camera. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to get into next time go around, but it'll be something related to this car here, one over there. Definitely some more Firebird content coming your direction. Of course, anything I can help you with, let me know just the same. But nonetheless, I'll grab the camera, and I hope we'll see you guys then.